welcome back to our channel. Today I'm joined by Archie.
Hello.
Archie is an estate agent and he's going to join us as part of our 10 questions series. So if you're new to this series, basically we ask different professionals 10 questions, the same 10 questions, and also sorry for my voice as well, it's breaking a little bit. But hopefully Archie can do all the talking. So first question, what is an estate agent?
Briefly, an estate agent is basically someone who would help a client to rent or to sell their property, and equally look to help to find someone or help them find a property to purchase or to rent. But that is probably it in its briefest format.
So what do you do day to day?
I guess in my certain role that I'm a sales negotiator, my day to day would be conducting viewings, dealing with clients that we're selling their houses on the market for, making sure they're informed of any ongoing viewings and keep them up to date just so they're getting the full kind of service aspect. Any part of the day could be negotiating offers, reporting to clients about upcoming properties, liaising with clients and making sure they're getting full access to what's out there in terms of stock on the market, because it can be challenging when you're looking for a property to find it as it is, but you need to have someone who's going to come back to you with different options, because the amount of times people start looking and they just don't know what they're looking for, so they need to make sure they're getting help and guidance, because it's not a straightforward process as it might seem from the offset.
So did you have any previous experience or qualifications? Did you go to uni?
So I started as an apprentice when I was 16, so I left school and went straight into an apprenticeship basically.
So you did GCSEs?
GCSEs, yeah. And then at the point where I could either go to sixth form or college, I chose to do an apprenticeship, which at the time was much more less common than it is now, because back then, even I'm only 21, so that was when I was 16, so about 5 years ago. It was quite a small minority of people that actually went on to do apprenticeships, and I think that's just because it wasn't as much as a thing back then. But I did that, so I did an apprenticeship, and I had to do that for 2 years until I was at a legal age where you'd be able to leave and do whatever you like. So it was kind of a different apprenticeship. Normal apprenticeships, you have to go to college, certain days a week, so I didn't. I did certain workshops in London, which were a few days in the year. So, but that's where I started. I didn't have any sort of experience prior to going into it. I was just sort of thrown in the deep end when I started, when I left school. So, which probably in the long term was a good thing, but yeah. And
do you know if that was just for estate agents, or if that's a thing that you can do?
The actual apprenticeship course wasn't just for estate agents, it was a sales course. The actual schedules that they had drawn up weren't very specific to estate agencies, so it was often hard, but they had to make one that it could cover a lot of different job titles in terms of apprenticeships, so different sales roles.
And what was the application process like for that role? So generally as an apprentice, and then also like for your particular role right now? Yeah,
so standard, you would obviously look out. Sometimes you have certain recruiters that will help you find a job and try and source a job for you if you register an interest to look for a job in the industry. Mine was quite simple. I just looked online, I found a position that interested me, and this has kind of been similar with lots of the places a couple of places I've worked at, is that you'll go for an interview with a director, and that's normally like the first stage, and then there's always normally a second person you'd go and meet, who might be your line manager or someone you'd be working closer with, and that's in my case what happened to me. I met with a director and then went to go and meet with who was my manager after I joined, after I had the interview. So I only had a two-stage interview process.
And CV, answer questions.
I had obviously when I was an apprentice, I had a CV, but it was gone to school, left school, so it wasn't the most of I guess exciting CVs, but it certainly had certain things on there that I had done in my childhood, which I guess would have helped contribute to the role. But it's difficult when you're that sort of age, because there is only so much you can put on a CV, and whereas other jobs, you're at a certain age when you're applying for them, you can factor a lot more in. And I guess that the role's good because you don't need any formal qualifications. There's no sort of degrees you need to enter the industry, which is why it appeals to maybe so many people that haven't gone through college or university. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So what do you enjoy most and least about being an estate agent?
I'll start with the bad. I think what I enjoy least is probably it does, I guess, take over your life in certain times, because you feel like you're always doing the job, because whether you're at home, you're always thinking about something that might be going to happen or that has happened, and you know, you can try and block that out, but ultimately if you're going to work the next day, you're going to have to deal with it. So you can almost start dealing with it in your head and prepare yourself, and then you're not kind of surprised. I'm not then in a position to deal with it. I think the best things about it are dealing with clients and seeing how happy they are at the end of the process, which sounds really cheesy, but I think it can be quite a tough process for people when they're spending a lot of money, which doesn't seem like a lot of money when you're spending 15 minutes in a house, and then you know, you'll spend more buying a £5 umbrella from the shop, so it's crazy. But I think that's what you enjoy, is where you see people
like helping people
go through the stages of the stressful process and then realise that you've helped them do it, really, and that and they, you know, you get positive feedback. I think that's why people do it. I don't see why else anyone else would do the job unless it was for that satisfactory part. So
where can your job take you? Like, what are your next steps, career path?
I think obviously there's lots of different career paths in the industry, and obviously mine would be very specific to being in a sales role. Often younger people, they tend to go into lettings first, because that's I guess a softer side of the business, not in terms of how you deal with customers, but certainly it's a much smaller process. You know, when you're letting a property, it's a lot less, it's a smaller transaction, quite simply. So it's no by means smaller in terms of importance or size, but certainly the actual length of, you know, process takes long. So I guess in my role, I always started out as an apprentice. I then progressed into being a negotiator, and then as a negotiator, I'm now a senior negotiator. And for me, the next stage would be to get to a sales manager, which would then be me looking at potentially going out on valuations and then trying to win listings and win business from customers who have asked you to come and value their house. But I think you then need to know, if you're working in certain areas, you need to be in a position to do that. So that would be having enough knowledge of the area to almost, you need to have expertise, knowledge of the area to make sure you're in the best position to win the business. But everyone's different, and in the industry, I've learned going through different companies is that not everyone wants to progress, and that might sound weird, but some people are happy, because it can be such a stressful job. It can be a job where if you do lower roles good enough, you can still earn a lot of money, because you're just you do it right and you do it well, and it's not the most complicated job in the world. It's not like you need to, and this is what, you don't need to have any qualifications. As long as you can build relationships, build trust, and do all that, you're certainly in a good position where you can progress and get into a good position. But I think that in terms of my position, my vision would be to, you know, when I'm ready, is to then step on and be a sales manager if the opportunity's right, and then take that manager role, which for someone, and it's a similar sort of aspect in the lettings side, because people start as a lettings negotiator and then go on to a lettings manager. It's the same thing, rather than just selling or letting. So and then obviously past that, you've got, you know, director of a branch or an office and managing a certain office.
So I think you touched on it briefly. But what are 3 characteristics that you can see with people within your job?
I guess the 3 that I would mention all kind of relate to each other, and there's a lot of characteristics in the industry, but these are the 3 that would come from a good agent, because there are certain things people do within the industry that I've seen firsthand which you wouldn't want to discuss or promote. I think for me, the main 3, I think the first one is trust, and you'll see what I mean about how they all link to each other, because if you're spending a certain amount of money, you want to be able to trust this person that the advice they're giving you and the advice they're going to help you with is going to be accurate and right, because you don't want to get certain things wrong. And it is quite a big responsibility, and there's a lot of trust they're putting in your hand. I guess another one that's important is being passionate. I think a lot of people do get into the industry more for the money side rather than wanting to actually help people, and it shows, because people then start getting attached to winning business rather than actually helping out a client. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So as well as it's great getting an offer and dealing with a customer a certain way to help you and not them, it just doesn't work in the long term. And third, I guess, it's more of a broader one, but it's honesty. I think you need to be honest with clients, because there is a lot of stages where things can go wrong, you know, and certainly it is a long process. You know, average sale at the moment takes 13 to 14 weeks, which is
so long.
It's a long time, especially when you just want to move into a house or you want to sell a house and make your next move. So I guess honesty is the best policy, and a lot of agents, I guess, sometimes aren't honest, and that's not because they're, trying to be spiteful. I mean, it's because they're probably just not, they don't want to upset anyone. And the best thing to do is to be honest straight up, because at the end of the day, it will only come out further down the line that someone hasn't been honest, and it then looks a million times worse. And people actually will respect you for being honest. I see a lot of people that are scared to be honest sometimes because they're scared of the repercussions. But as long as you're honest and you're doing the best for your client, then there's nothing more you can do, in my opinion. So yeah.
Perfect, thank you. We've not actually had those 3 characteristics before.
I know.
So that's really
I think it's different, isn't it, for each?
Really different, yeah.
It's a certain industry when it's very different, I guess, to a lot of the other topics that have been discussed in terms of industry. So it doesn't surprise me that they haven't come up yet.
Yeah.
So.
Question number 8. So anything you wish you did differently to lead you to this job? So like your path to get to where you are now.
Yeah. I guess in my experience, there isn't anything I would have done differently. I've left a couple of jobs, and I've always gone with what I thought was the best thing to do in terms of how I approached it. I think when I started going into an apprenticeship, there was always certain doubts because there weren't many of them about it.
So
I had nothing to relate to, and it wasn't like I go online and search a video of what the process is like, or get feedback from other people who have been in the same position, because there would have been people, but a very small minority, so it would have been hard to gauge what it was like. But I threw myself in a deep end, but that meant I learned certain characteristics and certain things about the industry which I don't think I would have learned if I approached it in a different way, by maybe going in a little bit like
later on in your career.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think I was at 16, literally leaving school a few months before. It's quite a big fate to jump straight into it. So
absolutely, yeah. For other people like looking into this and wanting to do this, what are the best resources or websites, etc., where they can find out like more information?
Yeah, I guess there's not a lot that you can go onto and actually look at. It's not that big, again, because there's no sort of curriculum that you need to follow in terms of needing to. There's no sort of degrees or anything. So that's normally where you would go to find out what you need. That's where people would start first. I guess for me, I would try and gain some work experience. I think that's the best thing. I know quite a few people that, to get into the industry, they did work experience, during college, and then learned that they would like to do it more. And I know some people that have started out doing Saturday jobs at estate agents, so part-time, so maybe doing 9 to 5 on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And then one of my friends started 9 to 5 at an agent, say, just whilst he was at uni. So he was basically doing it every other Saturday, 9 till 5.
Yeah.
And now he works there full time. So during the week as well. So I think you can either learn. I'm sure if he didn't work out, he might have kept in the Saturdays, but he would have known that full time wouldn't be right for him. So I guess the only way you're ever going to know is by going for it. And I think if you're interested enough to want to know more, then you'd probably worth trying it or asking to do work experience.
So
or
just reach out.
I think you've just got to speak to people. It's very much an industry where communication is key, and I think an agent is more likely to appreciate you just coming and asking them and asking for the opportunity. Some of them won't be able to, just because it is an industry in that sense where you need to be kind of hands-on. It's not that sort of industry where someone can really come in and be taught how to do it, a bit like how I was thrown in the deep end. I didn't get a chance to learn, which is the right thing to do, I believe, because it meant that I had no prejudgments or I wasn't worried about anything, because I was just doing it. And I might have made a couple of mistakes, but I then knew to never kind of make those mistakes again if possible. So I think ultimately there's nothing I would say to go on. There's certain things you can search up online and look at, but there's nothing, I guess, specific enough where it would give you would really help you identify if it's right or wrong for you. So I think just go for it. If you think you're able to deal with clients and speak to people, and you're confident in how you speak to people, then it's probably worth trying. So
Finally, question number 10. What advice would you give, I guess similar to what we said already, to 18 to 21-year-olds deciding what they want to do in their future? Yeah,
and I guess this links back to some of the other points, is that when I was obviously younger than that, but when I left, there was
stigma.
That's exactly it. It's a stigma behind not going to college or not going to sixth form, and I guess there was a lot of people like, well, why would you do that? It was almost seen as an excuse because you weren't clever enough to go to college. But I could have gone to college. I got all my GCSEs. I could have gone down that route, but I just simply didn't think it'd be beneficial for me in the long term, because I wanted to go into a state agency, whether that was at 16 or 18 when I left college. So I think my advice would be, again, what I just touched on. If you think you can do it, just go for it, because at the end of the day, I've worked with lots of different people across the industry, and some of them were just doing it for the first time, and they've turned out that they've got a natural ability where they can deal with people. And it's not one where there's loads of academic work with the business. You've got to be able to, you know, do basic kind of information spreadsheets and stuff for your own good, and know certain things. But apart from that, it's pretty straightforward. So I'd say my advice would be, if I was 18, 19, 20 and looking to get into the industry, speak to people, speak to your local agents. And I would recommend always going for smaller local independent estate agents rather than your bigger, because I've only ever worked for smaller independent. I've just found them, from dealing with other and knowing people that have worked in bigger corporates, you just get dealt with you get dealt as a number in a, and that's a fact.
So they invest in you more.
Exactly. I mean, you know, you'd like to think that in smaller independent estate agency it's a bit more personal, and you know the bosses, you know the partners, and that, I think that's important, because at the end of the day they're the ones who are employing you, so you want to know that you're repaying their trust and they're actually, you know, going to appreciate you. Whereas I think a lot of the bigger companies which are corporate and have local offices, they are, you know, they're great at promoting people and giving people quick promotions, but that's more of a method to keep people there. And I think sometimes people will then progress too quickly. I've seen lots of people go into corporate, do really well, and then quickly get promoted for doing well for 6 months, and then, you know, within another year they're working at a different company at a lower level of where they were, because the corporates are more worried about keeping you there, so they just promote you because they want you to be happy. And I think that's why you've got to make sure it's important you choose the right path. But I would always go for local smaller estate agencies, as long as they've got a good stock level. I mean, I'm not telling you to go to the ones that have no houses, but ones that are kind of smaller and have a decent stock level would be my recommendation, just because, you know, you'll find that in the long term it will benefit you more in terms of experience and getting, you know, a bit more of a leadership kind of teaching, I guess, from the people at the top that can help you. So
amazing. Well, thank you so much,
no
Archie.
worries, pleasure.
Make sure you comment any questions below that you've got for Archie about estate agency or apprenticeships generally as well. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on the channel, and I hope to see you guys soon. Bye.
See you later.